What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another video of the Point After podcast. If you've missed it, we've already released the Kentucky and Oregon team preview video for the 2022 season. We're back today with Michigan State, joined as always by my co-host Matthew. How's it going, man?
It's doing great, brother. Doing good. Michigan State, team we love, one of our favorite teams to bet on. I'm looking forward to talking about this one, Gage.
Yeah, they treated us well last year. I should have pulled all our betting stats. Like Wake Forest treated us really, really well last year, especially at the start of the season. Yeah, Michigan State did us well. Hopefully they do us again this season. If you've missed the first two videos, though, we're going to talk a little bit of offense, a little bit of defense, and then kind of give you a reasonable expectation on what to expect out of Michigan State this year. Because, as always, there are fans out there that, this is the year Michigan State go 12-0 and win it all. Like, it's possible, but it's not, we're going to take the bias out of it and give you what you can reasonably expect. So, Matt, I'll let you start us off with offense. I'll cover D, and then we'll get into their schedule.
I think it's no secret that this year it's going to be led by Peyton Thorne. No secret also that Kenneth Walker was a huge loss. I think he does great things in the NFL, so best of luck to him. But in turn, Peyton Thorne last year, 27 touchdown passes, 10 interceptions. I think that's a phenomenal ratio, especially given the teams and the season that he had last year. A lot of tough games. I think last year was one of the most proud. Me and you have always kind of like Michigan State for, I could say, the last 4 or 5 years, but we've been college football fans for longer. This has been one of the best seasons. I've enjoyed watching them, and I do watch a lot of Michigan State games. Can't tell you why, but I do. But anyways, back to it. Peyton Thorne, I think he's going to be, probably one of the top 3, top 4 quarterbacks in the Big Ten. He's great, collective in the pocket, and he's got some weapons to throw to. Jordan Reed last year was a 1,000-yard receiver. I think he's definitely their go-to. Saw roughly 40% of their touches in the red zone in terms of passing. So I think that's a huge key coming back for him, Peyton Thorne. And I think one of their most reliable guys, Trey Mosley, last year he called 61%, or he was 61% on his catches in third down conversions, less than 10 yards. So I think in terms of short distance stuff, look for him to be a really reliable target for Peyton Thorne. And tight end transfer Daniel Baker, 11 TDs last year for Illinois. In Big Ten, Big Ten's big on tight end play. I think 11 TDs is really significant. And I think that's going to help, in terms of opening up the run game, because next point running back, that's going to be a tough one. I think it's going to be really hard to, as a Michigan State fan, you probably don't want to have the expectations for the run game as you did last year. You got 2 new transfers coming in, Wisconsin, Jalen Berger, and out of Colorado, Jarek Broussard, who was the Offensive Player of the Year in the Pac-12 in 2020. So, you definitely got experience, and that's a great thing. But I think we're going to see a lot more passing, reliable offense this year from Michigan State. And offensive line, it's gonna be tough up front. Got starting experience, but a lot of the guys are inconsistent. Last year, I don't think there's any NFL scout guys on my radar for Michigan State this year in terms of offensive line. But Michigan State's always been one of the top teams offensively in the Big Ten, and I'll touch on my prediction here in a little bit. Offense, weapon-wise is looking pretty stacked. Gage, I think it's just really going to come down to O-line and how the first 4 games of the season roll out.
Yeah, I'm looking at the middle of the schedule, honestly, for Michigan State, which I'll talk about after I cover the D. But the middle of that schedule for Michigan State is looking mighty rough. Speaking of rough, damn, I'm getting my words twisted here. Matthew, I know you've heard the saying. I know a lot of other people have heard the saying too. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Throw it out the window. Numbers freaking lie, Matthew. You don't know why? Last year, Michigan State had the worst passing defense in college football. They faced 5 of the top 13 passing offenses in college football last year. Their defense is one of 6 teams to play over 1,000 plays, and Okay. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. But that's awful. I mean, like, anyone who says you like when you're the worst passing defense in college football and you still manage to go 11-2, that's incredible. That's probably unheard of. You know, if you give me those stats, I'm not betting on Michigan State to win 11 games. But anyway, they were number one in sacks in the Big Ten last season, but they were number 11 on third down defense. So when you look at the numbers defensively for Michigan State last year, god awful. Now, compared to their record, again, these numbers they're going to play mind games with you. They're going to trick you. Luckily for Michigan State, though, you're returning 79% of your production. You, on top of that, are bringing in you have 10 total transfers coming in. That's number 16 transfer portal class in 2021 or 2022. I don't know what exactly it classifies as. But 3 of those guys are starters from SEC programs. You got Amir Speed, 3-star cornerback out of Georgia, who will come in and start right away. You got Chris Bogle, who's a 4-star edge out of Florida, come in and start right away. And then you got Aaron Brule, who's a linebacker out of Mississippi State, another guy who will come in and probably see immediate playing time. So you're already returning 8 or 9 out of your 11 guys from last season. You're bringing in 3 more guys who can come in and start immediately on an 11-2 team. Like, you're setting yourself up for success defensively. Again, don't buy into the stats from last season. They're going to trick you. But some players to keep an eye on outside of those guys, you got Xavier Henderson, who led the team in tackles last season with 96. He's a safety. So most of the time, again, just like the numbers say, when your safety is your leading tackler, that's normally not a good thing. This case, it is. You're 11-2. He had 10 tackles for loss and only 1 interception. And then Cal, I can't read my own handwriting. He only had 2 interceptions. So last year, I think Michigan State had 5 or 6 total interceptions for the entire season. Again, not good at all. Slade and Barrow is going to carry the D-line. So Michigan State defensively, I think they're pretty set this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, defensively is definitely their strong suit this year. And, it sucks for Peyton Thorne because, I think he's going to get drafted somewhere, probably spend his duration seeing a little bit of playing time in the NFL, but majority he's going to be a backup. But I still think he's great in terms of, college football. And last year, passing yards, rushing yards per game, not in the top 45. So 11-2, and you weren't in the top 45 in the majority of the major categories. It's going to be an interesting one for Michigan State.
Yeah, well, moving on to their schedule. You mentioned it. The first 4 weeks are going to be very vital for Michigan State offensively. To me, week 6, 7, and 9 is going to be where basically it's do or die for Michigan State. That's where you're going to learn a lot about your team. And like we talked about a few minutes ago with Oregon doesn't really get a chance to get to develop anything into the season. They played the defending national champions in week 1. Michigan State's kind of the opposite of that. You start off with Western Michigan, then Akron, play Washington and Minnesota, and then Maryland before you end up in Ohio State. If you're Michigan State, is anything less than 5-0 acceptable?
The 3-game stretch right there before is not going to be easy. Before Ohio State, that's why I was saying the four games right there from Western Michigan to Minnesota, because even Maryland, I think, is a potential loss, especially this year. So I think 4-1 is okay, but I think realistically you want to try to be 5-0 going into that game because I hate to be that way, but we kind of already know what's going to happen. Even though it's a home game, I don't think the result's going to be any different.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I think 4-1 is, again, reasonable. 4-1 should be expected. If you're 5-0, then you've got something brewing. Like you mentioned, Ohio State might, I wouldn't even say humble you. but I think Ohio State will be your first true test of like, okay, this is truly how good we are. Because I think even if you lose one of those first 5 games, maybe say you drop to Maryland, and then you come in at 4-1, Ohio State 6-0 or 5-0 at that point. You know, you could be a 4-1 team, and you could be really good at 4-1, or you could be mediocre at 4-1. You know, your schedule or your record isn't always a direct reflection of how good your team is. Example, Arkansas last year. But then after Ohio State, you play Wisconsin at home, who's the favorite to win the Big Ten East, I believe. And then you get a bye week before you head to Ann Arbor. So rivalry game at Michigan. You know, so you got a 4-week span there where you could come out 5-0 or go in 5-0 and come out 5-3. You know, before you even realize what hits you.
You know, another thing too I didn't think about, their first 5 games are going to be actually beneficial to them, especially if they can walk out 4-1, 5-0. Because Ohio State, other than Notre Dame, I don't think has anybody that's going to give them any sort of challenge until Michigan State. So I think that 5-0 confidence booster has to be there. 4-1 confidence booster, that has to be implications. But, you know, I'm with you. That Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan stretch, you could be looking at 3 L's. And then Indiana, I think they escaped with a win again in that one, especially being at home. But ending the season on Penn State, who I will touch on later for a stay tuned prediction on Penn State, maybe in a couple weeks. But I think that one's going to be a tough one too, especially being in Death Valley. So realistically, Gage, I'm thinking 8-4 here. That's what I'm going with.
That's pretty much dead on what I've got 9-3. I've got losses versus Ohio State and Michigan, and then I think they split Wisconsin and Penn State. Just because I think that 3-game stretch within that 4-week span, I could see them winning one of those 3 games. They could come into it 2-3, and I still think they could pull out one of those 3 just because that's how college football works. You're going to get up for big games. You're going to play your best against the best. And then that Penn State game in week 15 or whatever it is, I've got that one circled too, because that to me is a 50-50 game. I think if Penn State rolls all season long, Penn State takes it. But if they struggle, if we get a Sean Clifford that's inaccurate one game and then dead on the next, not knowing what we'll get out of Penn State, Michigan State may take it, especially being 12 weeks in. But yeah, I've got 9-3 down. I think that's pretty much what you can expect out of Michigan State. And even going from 11-2 last year to a 9-3, 8-4 this year, you're still a really good football team. Like I said, your record doesn't always define how good you are.
Definitely capable of getting a big upset this year, but 8-4, 9-3, I'm with it.
Well, Matt, any last words on the Spartans for 2022?
There's a category on the invisible wall of bets that says teams that cover Michigan State.
Yep.
So if you need a team that covers all reliable, Michigan State's my team this year. Regardless of what we think the record will be, I think they're going to be a decent ball club.
Yep, especially with, like I mentioned, with just that defense alone for me is enough to make me a believer. So, hell, Sparty, whatever they say up north, I'm not really sure, but Michigan State, nonetheless, should be a pretty good football team this season. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you're a fan of college football and not just Michigan State, hit that subscribe button. We got 3 or 4 more videos coming out next week, and then, 40 or 50 before the season starts. 39 days away. But thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys tomorrow.